Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, bonjour, ciao, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos, welcome. My name is Jedley, and this is Reading with Your Kids, coming to you with love from the historical neighborhood of Reedville, tucked into the southwest corner of beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. Our mission here is all about connection, connecting kids with books, families with each other, and communities through the power of story. Every week we're joined by incredible authors and creators whose work lights up kids' lives. You can support this mission by spreading the word, share the show with your friends, give us a shout out at school, and let folks know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, Amazon Music, wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful episode for you today. First up, Paige Murray is here to celebrate her new picture book, Rosie's Ranch Rescue. And later in the show, Tashay Mason rejoins Reading with Your Kids to celebrate Book 3 in her Journey Through Grief series. This book is called Let's Celebrate. Want to let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Chicken Coop Chaos, the fun book written by our friend Nancy Tavares. Are you ready for some barnyard fun your kids will absolutely adore? Then you've got to check out Nancy Tavares' delightful books, Chicken Coop Chaos and Chicken Coop Chaos Christmas. In the original Chicken Coop Chaos, we meet Pearl, a hen who loves peace, order, and a tidy little hen house. But when Window the Rooster barges in and decides he's not leaving, Pearl has to hatch a clever plan to take back her space, and let's just say things get a little chaotic. Just in time for the holidays, Chicken Coop Chaos Christmas brings even more laughs, heart, and festive fun together. These books are perfect for young readers, classrooms, and family read-aloud time. So flap on over to your favorite bookstore or online retailer and grab your copies of Chicken Coop Chaos and Chicken Coop Chaos Christmas today. Your kids will be clucking with joy. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Trumpet, the Miracle Wolf Pup series. There's a brand new book in the series, and we're so excited to tell you all about it. Trumpet becomes a mom. In this exciting book, Trumpet and Lighthawk, now a bonded pair, start their own family with their very first litter of pups. Families can read together, schools can explore the importance of wolf packs and conservation, and Trumpet fans everywhere can celebrate this milestone in her incredible journey. Grab your copy today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, select bookstores, and the Wolf Conservation Center, where Trumpet and her family live. Plus, 50% of all profits go right back to supporting the Wolf Conservation Center, with more donated to Lighthawk Conservation Flying. So grab your book today and have a group haul for Trumpet and her family. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Texas. Our guest is here today to celebrate. Her new picture book is called Rosie's Ranch Rescue. Please welcome to the show, Paige Murray. Hey, Paige, how are you?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing great. It's hot here in Texas. We're talking it's Hot-tober, but we're doing great.
So when we're saying hot, what are we melting on the street? Are we frying eggs on the sidewalk?
Well, it's still 90 degrees. It is like, I'm ready to have my hot pumpkin spice latte, but it's just too hot here. So fall is a long time coming in Texas.
Well, if we can push any of our fall weather down south to you, we'll do our best.
Okay.
Tell us about Rosie's Ranch Rescue, please.
Yeah, so this is my second children's book, Rosie's Ranch Rescue, and it is the second in the series of my Rosie the Horse book. So it started with Rosie's Wild Ride, that came out last year, and then Rosie's Ranch Rescue came out October 7th. And it's, it could be a standalone book. It's not like a sequel, but it's just part of the series we started. And this adventure, I live on a ranch in Texas, and we have a real Clydesdale horse named Rosie. And then my daughter's name is Oakley. She's 7 now. And we have a grouchy barn cat named Thumbs. And then we have a stray dog that showed up named Pete, and he's very protective. And so they are the main characters in this story. And on this adventure, they have to go rescue the new baby calves from a pack of coyotes. And so it's inspired by real events on the ranch. And it's just an adventure story. And the main themes of it, taking care of each other, obviously the subtitle of the book. They learn to take care of each other, family, and those you love. And then they find out what true bravery and courage is. And I include a quote in there from John Wayne. It says, "Courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway." So we can dive more into that. And then they find compassion. And I'll tell you where all these themes came from. But compassion for others, and that's in the form, at the end, you realize that the coyotes are just trying to protect their family and take care of their family as well. So it opens up the door to talk about a lot of different lessons with your kids, but my main goal was to write an adventure story kids would love. So that's Rosie's Ranch Rescue.
Awesome. That must be a really difficult thing, talking about the coyotes in a positive light, because the world is a difficult, complicated place, and certainly coyotes who are out looking for food aren't being evil; they're just being coyotes. How did you kind of thread that line? That's I don't know if I would have tackled that if I was an author, but
yeah. So living on the ranch, my daughter is exposed to so many real life lessons. Hard work, responsibility, the circle of life and death, compassion for animals. She has to be tough, but also gentle and kind. And so all these lessons I thought were good lessons for kids. And that lesson with the coyotes, we do have coyotes on the ranch, and we have to protect our cattle and our pets from the coyotes. Pete, our dog, does a good job. They kind of keep the coyotes at bay. But really, this lesson came from a true event that happened on our ranch. So a couple years ago, my daughter was 4. We were out on the ranch, and Pete went after a wild boar hog, and they can get up to 400 pounds. They're huge. And they got in a fight. The hog ran into it like a cave down in the river bottom, and Pete went after him. And they got in a huge fight. It was so scary. We were there watching. My husband was able to rescue Pete, and we rushed him to the vet, and he had a bunch of lacerations under his chin, but thank goodness they were all superficial and could be stapled up. But that night, we were laying in bed, and my daughter's name is Oakley, and she said, "Daddy, I'm so mad at that hog. Why did he want to hurt Pete? I'm so mad at him." And my husband, Ty, he said, that hog was just trying to protect himself. He was just protecting his territory and his home. And, he wasn't trying to be evil. His intention wasn't even to hurt Pete. He was just protecting himself and taking care of himself. And so that was kind of the idea that sparked the inspiration for this book, dealing with the coyotes being a predator on the ranch. But in the end, my daughter, and she realizes this too, that these coyotes, in the book, I love the way it's portrayed, because you're like, the coyotes are the villain. They are the evil one that you're pulling against. And the cute baby calves, they have to keep them from being attacked from the coyotes. But in the end, I have a beautiful little spread, and the same lesson that my husband shared with my daughter. It says, that's because family takes care of each other. And you can see the Clydesdale Rosie and Thumbs and Pete and Oakley, and then you can see the den of coyotes with her pups in there, and that she's just trying to feed them and take care of them too. And so I thought that was an important lesson for kids to learn, and it helps them see things from a different perspective, to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And then I think that's where compassion comes from.
I think that's so very important, helping our kids understand that we are all looking at life through different lenses, from different perspectives. And I think that can be such a valuable tool, and can really lead to, hopefully, a better world, a better, kinder, more inclusive world.
Yeah, that's my hope too. And Pocahontas, that song says it best. You think the only people are the people who look and think like you. And so many people have that mindset. But I feel like if you can start talking to these things about your kids when they're young and viewing things from a different perspective, and I think books are an amazing way to do that. It's a good way to put yourself in someone else's shoes and read about different experiences and different cultures. And we live on the ranch. We're a cowboy culture, but I feel like these animals can teach lessons that my daughter can take into the real world. That I'm so thankful for these animals to be able to teach her those lessons. Even with grief, like a lot of children, their first experience with grief may be losing a pet. Mm-hmm. And so if they can handle this through an animal where you're more removed from the process, you can take a step back. I feel like it's easier to learn lessons from animals. And then you can take that into your life when you have to deal with something on the bigger scale, on a larger scale with your friends at school, or when you lose a loved one day. And so I just thankful for these lessons. And I think it's a fun way to teach kids these things and to talk to them about it, and putting themselves in other people's shoes. And maybe that kid that is mean to you at school, well, you never know what he's going through. And you still have to take care of yourself. But if you can find compassion for someone, I feel like you can handle these situations a lot better and come from a place of understanding when you're handling situations like that with kids at school or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. And you have an interesting cast of characters. A Clydesdale, for people who haven't seen them in person, that is a huge animal. And other than pulling the Budweiser wagon, I don't know what Clydesdales do. Is your horse somebody that, people jump up on and ride? Because you're way up high on top of a Clydesdale.
Yes, I'm so glad you asked this. So they are the second largest breed of horse in the world. They can weigh up to 2,000 pounds. The Budweiser horses are really big. And here's actually have a picture of Oakley and Rosie in the back. And so my first book, Rosie's Wild Ride, it was, they dreamed of being rodeo stars. And, the Clydesdale, she's too big and she's too slow. And so it's their adventure of chasing their rodeo dreams and figuring out how to use her size and strength for her advantage, and find what makes her different is what makes her special. And that's where her special talents lie. And so we have a Clydesdale on the ranch. They're known as gentle giants. And my husband, he's a 9-time world champion cowboy, and he's the co-founder of the Professional Bull Riders. So he always likes a challenge. Well, he wanted one to get a Clydesdale because they were known to be gentle for my daughter and I to ride, to take care of us. But then he also kind of wanted to experiment with turning a plow horse, a horse that's known for pulling carriages and carts and parade. They used to help farmers plow the fields before tractors were invented. But he wanted to turn a plow horse into a cow horse, so like a ranch horse. He wanted to see if he could get her to be handy enough to do jobs on the ranch. And she's been wonderful. And he documented her training on Facebook, and people fell in love with Rosie. And so I was inspired to first write about Rosie being so different. She's out of place. She's like, you don't see Clydesdales on ranches. And I started to imagine what that would be like for her if it felt strange in a land of quarter horses and ranch horses, that here she is. She looks different. She's so much bigger. She's got big feathered feet and a big Roman nose. And so that's kind of what inspired me to write about her, was just how different she is and out of place she is. But she's here on a ranch, and she can do any of the jobs that the other horses can do.
That's amazing. It really, I've had the opportunity to see a few Clydesdales up close and personal, and they are just ginormous creatures. The only other thing, I've also been up close and personal with a couple of elephants, and yes. I'm just in awe of these creatures that are so big and, like you were saying, so very gentle. Yeah.
And my husband, he said, Rosie reminds him more of an elephant than a horse. The way she moves and her nature. We've been around a few elephants too, and they seem so gentle too. But it's neat, she's not as quick. She's not as fast as the quarter horses. So, she won't ever be as handy on the ranch as a quarter horse, but she can still do any of the jobs. And because she moves slower, you feel safer on her. Mm-hmm. And actually, man, our daughter, I think, was 3, and she was the first person that my husband put on that horse, on Rosie. And so I thought that just speaks volumes for her demeanor and nature and how much he trusts her.
Yeah, I guess so. Wow. At 3 years old. I shared this story not too long ago on the podcast. I've been on a horse a grand total of 3 times, mm-hmm. and every time the horse invited me to get off. So I figured, well, this happened 3 times. This is probably not something I should be trying to do. So,
yeah.
And I'm a city boy, so it's hard to find horses to jump, get thrown off of here. You also mentioned that Pete the dog is a stray. Is that true? This dog just showed up on your ranch one day, and you said, "Oh yeah, all right, sleep here on the porch."
Yes. So, we live miles off the road. We mm-hmm. really surprisingly don't have that many stray animals show up, but we don't have any neighbors. Mm-hmm. So it was 9:00 at night and our other 2 dogs were barking, and my husband went out. He said, "It's a big dog out here." And he tried to run him off because I have a funny farm. So I have chickens and goats and rabbits and 7 cats and mini horse and donkeys, all those animals. And you don't want a stray aggressive dog coming in. So he tried to run him off. But he walked back to the house, and the dog tucked his tail and put his head down and just followed him back to the house. And, my husband was like, "We do not need another dog." I said, "Well, I'll call the shelter tomorrow. Maybe we can try to find him a home." So we, put him in a pen we had and gave him some food and water. And the next day I went out, and he just had the sweetest expression on his face. My little girl came out with me, and I said, "Well, let's let him out and see if he chases any chickens or any cats or tries to hurt any of our animals. Then we can take him to the shelter." But we let him out, and he was just the most well-behaved, beyond a well-behaved dog. I've had other dogs, you take them to a farm or something, they'd run after all the chickens, but he just was so intelligent, so kind, and you could just tell he was appreciative of us. So we went on a little hike with him and came back, and my daughter said, "Daddy, we have 3 dogs." And he said, "No, Oakley, we only have 2 dogs." She said, "No, Daddy, look, 1, 2, 3." And she said we named him Pete, and he's been with us ever since. And so he's a black-mouthed cur. We don't know what happened, if he was dumped or I don't know how he ended up here. I've put it all over Facebook trying to find out something, but have gotten no follow-ups. But he is a black-mouthed cur, which is ironically the same dog that Old Yeller was in the book. In the movie, he was not played by, it was like a lab mix. But in the book, he was a yellow cur dog. And his story reminds me so much of Old Yeller. He acts just like him. He's got, went after bears and the wild hog. All the story from Old Yeller is like our Pete. And he's just the most intelligent dog and protective and loyal. And I feel so thankful that he showed up.
That's very good. I hope the other 2 dogs aren't upset that they weren't included.
I don't think they're upset. They're just happy to be around.
Now, I was seeing on your website that you also have written cookbooks. Did I see that correctly?
Yes. So I self-published a cookbook. I moved to Texas to work for a television network called Ride TV, and it was a horse-based television network. Uh-huh. Hosted a cooking show on there called Southern Fried Skinny Fried. And I think I was pregnant. Yes, I was pregnant. And I decided I wanted to put all my recipes together to be able to pass down to my daughter and have for my family. And I was like, well, I'll just, put it on Amazon. And it's fun. And I was, I was excited, and it was unexpected how many people kind of wanted to purchase a copy of it. And so that was my first kind of writing experience. And I taught myself everything, how to make the book on the Amazon program and get it on Amazon and things like that. So that was fun. And then I've always loved to cook, and then to have a traditionally published children's book come out last year was such just an eye-opening, amazing experience. And it's been fun to be on both sides and see what it entails.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely should try out your recipes. I could use some help getting skinnified.
Yeah, I was like, I've always loved to eat, but then I became kind of passionate about nutrition and fitness too. I was like, well, I don't want to give up my favorite Southern foods, so I'll just try to make them with healthier ingredients, and that's kind of inspired me to make that cookbook.
Yeah. And what's it feel like now that you are, in addition to a self-published author, a traditionally published children's author?
That feels like a dream come true. I've always liked to write, and I guess I've always loved storytelling because I was like a broadcast journalist, so I love to tell people stories. And then when I became a mom, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom with my daughter. And so my life completely changed. You know, I was traveling a lot, going to different events, working as a sideline reporter for rodeo. So I was home a lot, and I just missed having something creative to work on and to have a passion to be proud of. And so that's when I decided these stories from the ranch and these lessons my daughter is learning here on the ranch, I feel like are universal lessons and values that kids everywhere would enjoy. And, you know, a cowboy to a lot of kids around the world and even in America is kind of like a mythological creature. It's like a superhero. You know, there's Woody on Toy Story that kids are familiar with, but a lot of people and kids, like when they see my husband, they're like, there's a real cowboy. And so I was like, this would be, I think, a fun adventure story for kids. And when I first had this idea, I just wanted to do it. Same with my cookbook. I said, I already know how to self-publish a book. I said, if I cannot find an agent or a publisher, then I will just find an illustrator and self-publish this book because it's a passion of mine. And so that was my goal. And ironically, I met a woman at my daughter's gymnastics, and she overheard me talking on the phone about this book to my husband. And she told me that she used to work as a literary agent and she'd love to help me. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. And it's published through Zonder Kids, which is the Christian imprint of HarperCollins. And they publish a few just wholesome books in addition to their Christian themed books. And so that's kind of where mine fell in. But I was, you know, it just exceeded my expectations, and I feel like I got lucky meeting the right person at the right time. And having people support this book, and the Western and rodeo industry really came out, and the horse industry. But then I think people outside of that industry found these books and just talk about how much their kids enjoy them and how they enjoy these lessons from the ranch. And I feel like it came at a great time after COVID, and when everyone's home, and like when there's like a uncertainty or tragedy, you know, people kind of look towards traditions and customs and things like that to make them feel comfortable. And I feel like these stories are just kind of a reminder of the simpler times. You know, we live a life that many of our ancestors probably grew up on farms or ranches, but not many people do now. And so I feel like it's just feels like comforting to read these stories, kind of like the good old days and simple life, being surrounded by nature and animals.
Yeah. That was one of the things that, you know, we love celebrating the fact that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And your book can definitely be a window into a lifestyle that, as you said, used to be the predominant lifestyle in our country, and now very few people partake in it. But it's still, I think there's something inside us that maybe is a genetic memory that once there is attracted in some ways to that lifestyle, being out in nature and just kind of being more independent and self-sufficient than we are now.
I love that you say a window into another life. And I was looking up the stats, you know, when I first was writing this, and in 1930, 6.8 million people lived on a farm. Mm-hmm. There were 6.8 million farms in the U.S. And just, I think 2 years ago, the number was like 1.8 million. So it's, you know, it's declined drastically in really a short amount of time. But it's a I think it's a fun way to share not only how people used to live, but also how some of us still live this agriculture lifestyle now, and to be able to share, it's authentic. These books are authentic, and dealing with coyotes on the ranch is a factor. You have to take care of your animals. And so I like to be able to let children get a glimpse of what life on the ranch is like, and inspire them and their imagination. And, it might spark something in them that they want to get involved in. I majored in animal science. Black Beauty was like my favorite children's book. I majored in animal science and been with horses, still writing about horses. So you never know what you're going to spark in a kid's imagination.
Ah. One of the things I'd be remiss if I didn't address, you mentioned that your husband is a professional cowboy. And until until my nephew became a professional cowboy, I thought there's no such thing as professional cowboys, but there are. He did the whole, when you're driving the cows from one state to another to get to.
Oh, like a cattle drive?
Yes, there it is. Thank you. That's dumb city boy. Didn't know. Yeah. Cattle drive. Yeah, he did that for many, many years. And you were mentioning that your husband is part of the Professional Bull Riders Association?
Yeah, that is so cool. Your nephew did that. Yes, so there are cowboys that work on ranches and, like you said, work cattle drives and the day-to-day operations of whatever goes into a ranch. And then there's rodeo cowboys. They're professional cowboys that compete in the rodeo events. And so my husband he grew up as a rodeo cowboy. And then when he was in his 20s, he bought this ranch because he wanted, he grew up like in a trailer home. His dad worked on the racetrack with race horses, but his dream was to own a ranch and be a cowboy, not just like a rodeo cowboy. And so, yes, and then when he was 20, in his 20s, he was having some success, and him and 20 of his bull riding friends decided to branch off and start the Professional Bull Riders, and now you can see how that's grown today. And so that's just proud of him, and it's so neat for him to see where his dream is taking him. And now it's like, bull riding, they're professional athletes. They're just bought by the UFC, whoever owns both of them now. Yep. And so that's really neat to see, like, the life that bull riders are getting to live now.
Yeah. TKO, who owns the UFC and WWE and a lot of other things. I was really surprised. I am going to do my best. I understand that the PBR is coming to Boston for the very first time. I think in January. I'm not sure, but I know we just had some kind of rodeo event on City Hall Plaza here in Boston. I think is part of an announcement for the PBR in the Boston Garden. So that would be so neat to check out.
That would be amazing. Yes, I know they go to Madison Square Garden every year in New York and sells out. So it's so fun. It's like, I think you would have a great time. It's such a fun event. Very family friendly too. And,
Well, I definitely know that if I can't stay on a horse, I wouldn't even think about getting on a bull, but it is fun to watch other people try to do that. How difficult is it for you to watch your husband on these mammoth beasts that are trying very hard to throw your husband off and maybe stomp on him?
So he actually retired when he was 32 from rodeo and bull riding. So I met him after he rode. So now it's fun to watch video of him because I know he's safe. But we talk about, like, he made his son, my stepson, he's 14 now, but promised he would never ride bulls. And it would just, it's probably like working in the emergency room. You know how many bad things can go wrong and happen. And this, what he's seen happen in the arena with fellow bull riders. And so I don't think there's any way I could watch my daughter. I don't know how they do it. So I don't know. I don't even know how his mom watched him do it. I tell her both their, like, amygdalas broke. I watched the free solo rock climbing documentary, and the guy was saying, they said my amygdala might be, there's something wrong with it. He's like, he doesn't feel fear. And I was like, I think that's what you guys have.
Well, As I am contemplating checking out PBR here in Boston, we should tell everybody where they can go to check out more about Rosie's Ranch Rescue and check out all the neat things that are happening on your website.
Thank you. Yes, so I started a blog, bootsandbiscuits.com, and that's where my recipes are, and my books are up there, and you can follow along with the real-life characters. You can read more about them. You can see real pictures of the characters to show your kids. It makes it really fun for them. And then my Instagram is Paige D. Murray, and I share a lot of ranch life, animals, recipes there. But I think it's so fun for kids to see the real animals and what they're up to in their day-to-day life. And then I'm on Facebook too, Paige Murray, Boots and Biscuits. And so there's a lot of fun things there. And I wanted to mention that John Wayne quote where you're talking about being fearless or being brave. Yes. So it says, courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. And I included that because I once told my husband, I said, you're so brave. He said, I don't feel like I'm brave. I said, what do you mean? You ride bulls. And he said, I'm not scared. He said, so you're not brave if you're not scared. I was like, oh, you're just fearless. And so I wanted kids to know that even though they're scared, that does not mean they're not brave. Being scared is your chance to be brave. When you feel scared and you still act on that fear and conquer the thing that you're trying to do and attempt to do it, that's when you're being brave. That's real courage. So I wanted kids to be encouraged that being scared does not mean they're not brave or courageous. That's, in fact, required to be brave.
I love it.
Yeah.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Rosie's Ranch Rescue. It's a new picture book from our guest, Paige Murray. Paige, I'm going to check out that wild rice and mushroom soup. I'll let you know how it comes out. Thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much.
Get ready, adventure fans. Toby Baxter is back. In I Heart Riverhome, the fourth thrilling book in the Adventures of Toby Baxter series, written by Tim Wright, 13-year-old Toby dives into his most unexpected quest yet. He's battling trolls, navigating the sandpit of love, and getting stuck with an LOVE compass. But when the girl of his dreams, Rainey, is kidnapped, Toby must summon more courage than ever before. All 4 books in the Adventures of Toby Baxter series have been honored as Reading with Your Kids certified great reads, each packed with fast-paced action, humor, and heart. So grab your copy of I Heart Riverhome today and join Toby on an unforgettable journey through Riverhome, where every page is an adventure. My friends, are you looking for a magical way to get your kids moving? Once Upon a Dance brings stories to life with interactive books that inspire little ones to read, move, and imagine. Award-winning and teacher-approved, these whimsical tales are perfect for classroom story time or family fun. Spark joy, build confidence, and dance into imagination. We really love all the OnceUponADance.com books. You will too. Discover more at OnceUponADance.com or find Once Upon a Dance books at your favorite online bookstore. Once Upon a Dance! My friends, I am so excited. Our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate her new children's book. It's book 3 in her series, Let's Celebrate, A Child's Journey Through Grief. Please welcome back to Reading with Your Kids, Tasha Mason. Hey, Tasha, how are you?
I'm good, Jed. Thank you so much for having me back. It's great to be back.
I'm delighted to have you back. This is especially cool. We're recording this on November 6th, and in just a few days, we'll be celebrating Veterans Day, and I am very proud to have a wonderful veteran here celebrating this episode on the show.
Well, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that.
How did it feel going from being in the military to writing a series of books that help kids through the grieving process?
Oh, wow. It's been a journey, I will tell you that. I never thought that I would write a book, period, let alone write a children's book about grief. So this whole experience has definitely been a game changer for me, and as well as thinking about my experiences in the military and the people that I've interjected with, and as well as the people that we've lost, even as a social worker at the VA for a couple of years. So this journey of writing this series has been very intense and at the same time therapeutic.
Yeah, yeah. Remind us, what was it that first inspired you to start the series?
So and as I stated in the first podcast with you, I lost my dad when I was 9 years old. And it was a very tough time for me as a child into adolescence, into adulthood. And I finally went to therapy to really start processing it as an adult, and as well as dealing with how I dealt with relationships. And then when I got to a part of just being okay, the idea to write a children's book came to mind. And then the idea to write a children's book about grief came. And it was interesting because I sat on it for a year because I wasn't sure if I was ready to write a children's book about grief, because I wanted to come at it with honesty, with tenderness to it, as well as showing there is some hope there while dealing with grief.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that here you are, a social worker, a grown woman, and still processing some of the grief that you felt as a little girl.
Yeah, it was interesting. Even when I went through my master's degree in social work, dealing with the different types of personalities and mental health disorders and everything, it kind of had me looking things at a different perspective. And even though I'm no longer a social worker, it was an interesting experience, but it also gave me the time to hold the mirror up to me, as well as how I'm feeling, because I was one of those kids that would internalize everything. Mm-hmm. And so when my dad died, I was like, well, maybe I didn't say I love you enough, or maybe, if I was a better kid, just different things like that it really wasn't true, but that's what I made up in my mind. And even though my mom was there to help me through this process, there was still a lot of things that I internalized. I was trying to be the perfect daughter, the perfect student, even though there's no such thing. But at the same time, feeling like I needed to have some sense of control, since I couldn't control that.
Yeah, yeah. In book 3, who are we going to meet, and what's the story that we're going to experience?
Well, you already know about Jasmine, who is the main character of the series, along with her mother, and Bella, the dog, is still in there. But the readers will get to meet her Aunt Rhonda. She comes along to help in this journey of her life, because Jasmine is getting ready for her ballet recital as well as a birthday party, and she doesn't want to participate in either one. Why? Because her dad is not there. So you'll get to meet Aunt Rhonda. You get to see some friends of hers as well as family as they come together with these celebrations.
Yeah. I think probably one of the hardest things about helping a kid through grief, whether you're a parent, an aunt, a grandparent, is you're trying to help your kid go through the grieving process while you're going through the grieving process yourself.
Exactly, which, as a kid, I never thought about that, what my mother was going through. As an adult, and her and I had the conversations about her grief. And even though her and my dad wasn't together at the time that he died, that was still her friend. That was someone that she loved. And she was telling me how, she had to be strong for me. And then also for my youngest sister, LaRonda, even though we have separate dads, but, she was barely 1 at the time all of this happened. Mm-hmm. And so her trying to be strong for us, taking care of us, and also trying to deal with her own grief, I know that had to be a challenge for her, because at one point she felt like I didn't think that she was enough. And I remember telling her that it wasn't that she wasn't enough. I just wanted both of them here. Mm-hmm. So it was a thing of not able to articulate that as a kid, because I'm angry because he's not here. I'm seeing other kids with their dads and wondering how come they're with their dad and not me. What did I do for him to not fight to stay here? So all these different things that as a 9-year-old, some people's like, well, 9-year-olds really think about. You'd be surprised what goes on in a 9-year-old's mind, especially with an imagination. I mean, I remember at one point I was hoping this was all a really bad joke, that one day that he would come back. So getting the perspective from my mom. And then also when I was volunteering at a grief support center for children when I was living in Fort Worth, seeing those parents and those caregivers that would come and bring their children for their helping them through the process, but also seeing them as they're going through the process as well. So you can see they're tired, sometimes frustrated because they're trying to handle their grief along with handling the grief of either one child or several children, which I know that can be a challenge in itself.
Absolutely, yeah. It's probably one of the most difficult things I think that parents have to deal with is helping their kids through grief.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what was going through my mom's head when she had to tell me that my dad had died. I remember, and as a matter of fact, next month, December 12th, is the anniversary of his death. And I remember coming home from school, and I remember her sitting me down, and I was wondering what I did wrong that day because she didn't have a cheery look on her face. And when she told me, I can't even imagine, having a parent that sit there to have to tell a child, because we want to protect our kids, right? We don't want them to have to deal with anything like that. And if you fast forward to today with a lot of things that's been going on with, what happened recently in Texas with the flooding, the school shootings and stuff, and kids dealing with this seems like on a regular basis. How do we help our children get through the grieving process? And it's not a thing of, like some people say, well, you got to move on. It's about moving forward, not moving on, because that person is no longer there. And trying to establish some type of normalcy while trying to find a sense of hope, a sense of joy, that can be a challenge.
I'm curious. When I was growing up almost 100 years ago, we didn't talk about grief. There was a little kid who lived 3 doors down from me who drowned at the age of 4. And while we knew about it, and I knew the kid's friends and all the parents in the neighborhood went to the funeral, we didn't talk about it. And it was just, move on. Nothing to see here. Nowadays, kids are, thankfully, we're talking to our kids when a loved one passes. We're including them in the process. But kids are also experiencing, as you said, the school shootings and violence. And a kid who has unrestricted access to the internet can see all sorts of horrific moments of violence on their devices. It's almost, I'm like wondering, was it better when we didn't talk about it, when kids weren't exposed to this?
It would seem that way, but the thing is, when you're not dealing with unprocessed anger, unprocessed frustration, unprocessed, could be depression as well, then it manifests in different things. Mm-hmm. So, which is why it's important for parents, for caregivers, for teachers, for counselors to check in with those kids. How are you doing? Something as simple as that. And sometimes they don't know how they're feeling because, as an adult, when we deal with grief, it's hard for us to sometimes go like, oh my goodness, I feel happy one moment, next moment I'm angry. And whatever you're angry at may not necessarily be the problem that you're really angry at. It may be an underlying meaning. So, and I've noticed even when I've gone to book fairs, there are parents that still to this day do not want to talk about it. It's like when it happens, we'll go from there. But unfortunately, learning how to have coping mechanisms in place, learning about, well, you know what, this grief journey, it has waves. You'll be one day, or even within the same day, everything seems fine. Then you may see something on TV. Somebody may say something. You hear something in a song. Or even just in your own thoughts will bring you right back to day one. And to be able to talk about it, to be able to share stories, to be able to be creative, to be able to express, these feelings are very important, the reason why A Child's Journey Through Grief series is so important. And then in addition to the 3rd book, I have an activity coloring book to go along with it to help children process and be creative in those spaces, because sometimes maybe they don't want to talk. Maybe they just want to sit there and color. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they want to do some type of craft. Something like that to kind of help them, or maybe even foster the conversation.
Mm-hmm. You were mentioning that some families even now don't want to deal with this. I'm thinking that A Child's Journey Through Grief is a great resource for families that are experience grief or think, gee, this my loved one is in the hospital and is probably not going to make it, and maybe I should get some books. What about the kids whose families at the moment are perfectly fine and life is going good? What value could that family experience if they bring the 3 books in your series into their family library?
Well, sometimes the kids may know someone that had a family member or a close friend that died. Even though these books are specifically for children and families that are dealing with it, it helps those that have not experienced read this and be able to garner some type of empathy. Because sometimes, it's hard to have compassion for someone when you haven't gone through that. There have been some things that, people will say that think that they're helping, like, oh, well, it's been a couple of years. Shouldn't you be past that right now? Which is the wrong thing to say. But to be able to read a story, to follow a family that even though you may not, be in that situation, but you can relate to the family and see, wow, there's a lot going on here. Because even going back to the first book of But I Don't Want to Say Goodbye, and, and everyone is there, do you need anything? Is there anything you need? And then the funeral happens, and then after the funeral, some of those people that say that, I'm there for you, sometimes they go away because life happens, they have other things going on. So what happens to that family after the funeral, which is why the second book, It's Okay to Be Happy, I wrote, because the family still has to establish a norm. Even if there's no one else around to help, they still have to figure it out. The parents have to figure out how to adjust things, because now instead of a 2-income household, now it's a 1-income household. Whatever that parent was helping with the kids to do, now that parent has to do everything. So them trying to figure out how life is going to continue in a more positive way can be a challenge, and it can take a while. Because some people, like I said, some people don't want to talk. Some people just want to sit there in silence. Some people want to be creative. That's why, with these books, even if you're not going through it, you can just see a wonderful story about a family that's trying to figure things out now that their loved one is gone.
Why the title, Let's Celebrate, for book 3?
Because this is the part where there's got to be somewhere in life, and it may take a while to get there, that you want to get to a point of celebrating, okay? There are birthdays, there are holidays, there are different milestones in a person's life. For this child, for Jasmine, she's going to graduate from middle school. When she gets there, she's going to graduate from high school. She's going to graduate from college if she wants to go, or she may join the military. She may get it, just work. There's going to be different milestones where she's going to want to celebrate, but at the same time, she's going to be thinking about, I wish my dad was there. So how can we celebrate without that person being there? Well, we can talk about the memories. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I think Dad would be very happy that I graduated from high school. And for a while, for me, Christmas was very tough for me, because that was one of my dad's favorite holidays. And I didn't want to celebrate it. I act like everything was fine. And when I finally got to a point of being okay, Christmas didn't seem so bad after all, So to be able to move forward, whether it's celebrating a milestone, celebrating a holiday, to be able to get to a point where, you know what, yes, I am angry. You are angry that he's no longer here. And that's okay, because we're going to feel this way at times. But guess what? Let's talk about the times he was here. So like with the ballet recital in the story, typically her dad would record the recital, and then they would go home and watch it together and have pizza and ice cream. Okay, he's not there. So who can do that? Well, guess what? Aunt Rhonda does it. She takes the video, and they go home with her and her mom and Bella, and they share that experience. It doesn't replace the experience with her dad. It's just creating new memories with something they've already done, which sometimes it can be hard for people to go back and do those things that they used to do with their person that died. They're no longer there. So how can I do this? How can we go fishing? How can we go to the amusement park without thinking about that person? But it's okay to think about that person. Think about a time when they made you laugh if you were at an amusement park or something that you did. So it kind of helps foster that a sense of hope and some joy, even if it's for a moment. So I felt like Let's Celebrate was greatly needed because we went with, but I don't want to say goodbye, to it's okay to be happy, and then looking at the next level, the next book into Let's Celebrate.
Yeah. And one thing, of course, one of the things that I wanted my kids to know when their grandparents passed and when their dog passed is they'd want you to celebrate.
That's true. And sometimes internally we can feel that, but it's like, I don't want to feel that though. I don't want to be happy right now. I know they would want me to go on and they want me to be happy, but I don't want to be because it's not fair. Why did they have to go? So that's why it's important with saying, you know what? I get it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is not fair that they are not here anymore. To validate those feelings instead of just saying, oh, well, you know, we got this. It's to go back and validate and then add on, you know, even though it's not fair. But do you think Dad would want you sitting around here like this, even though it's okay that you're angry? And then get the talking a little bit. And even if they don't want to talk, just sit there. But validating the feelings are very important because it can help little by little get to that point of wanting to celebrate. Because in this book, you follow Jasmine. She doesn't want to do the recital. She doesn't even want to celebrate her birthday. But she does get to a point where she does want to go perform at this recital and celebrate her birthday. But it takes the mom and Aunt Rhonda to acknowledge that in this moment, yeah, it's upsetting. I'm angry, and that's okay that you're going to be angry. It's okay to be confused. But guess what? You know what? What would Dad do in this moment? You know, kind of bring that in.
Yeah. I'm guessing that this might be one of those books that a parent doesn't want to read cold with their child sitting on their lap. This is a book you might want to sit down and read it by yourself and think about it, maybe shed a few tears of your own and prepare as to how you're going to read this book and what kind of conversations you're going to have with your kids.
I absolutely agree. If you're reading it for entertainment purposes, that's fine. But for children that may have questions, you know, and sometimes, you know, the parents don't want to answer some of those tough questions, but age appropriate, you know, questions, age appropriate answers. And to say, you know what, this book, you know, it does make me feel a little sad because I do miss whoever it is that may have passed. But you know what? You know, I feel what Jasmine is feeling. I get it. I understand what she's feeling because I feel the same way too. So it's a great way to help foster that, even though it's tough. And yes, you may shed a few tears, but at the same time, those tears can eventually turn into joy, even if it's just for a moment. And I volunteer for an online adult grief group right now. And I always tell them, you know, instead of this saying, let's take it day by day, I like to say, let's take it moment by moment, because you never know how you're going to feel one moment to the next within the same day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important. Tasha, where can we go to find out more about Let's Celebrate, A Child's Journey Through Grief, the book 3 in the series, and find out about all the books and find out more about you?
So November 8th, this coming Saturday, Let's Celebrate and the activity coloring book, Remember, Love, Celebrate, will be released on that day. They can go to Amazon and get it. I have a new website coming up, so my old website, bellshaehouse.com, will be coming down within the next couple of weeks. So I'm still working on that, but they can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. My name, Tasha Mason-author. And for updates, I'm going to be attending book fairs. As a matter of fact, later this month on November 20th, which is actually Child Grief Awareness Day, I'm going to be on San Antonio local news, sharing the information about the books and everything. So I'll be sharing that on my social media page as well.
We've had a really Really informative time speaking to the author of Let's Celebrate. It's book 3 in A Child's Journey Through Grief series. Our guest has been Tache Mason. Tache, thanks for being back on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile and gave you something to think about, please share the link to the show with a friend. And please consider leaving a 5-star review. It really helps. And, of course, we'd love for you to subscribe to the show, readingwithyourkids.com. And you can subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Paige Murray. Please be sure to check out Rosie's Ranch Rescue. Also want to thank Tache Mason. Please be sure to check out Let's Celebrate. It is book 3 in A Child's Journey Through Grief series. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a kinder, more gentle, better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.